Hello and welcome to Diecast Restos. I'm Jason and this time I'm customising a Tomica BMW 3.5 CSL. It replicates the cars entered into the FIA's Group 5 Special Production category for 1976. Today I'll be customising this model to be a more accurate reflection of one of those, in particular the number 42 car entered into that year's 24 Hours of Le Mans. To achieve this, I have gathered some period correct decals and wheels, which means I will also have to do some body modifications. This is because the tiny wheels Tomica fitted to this casting didn't need large wheel wells. My custom set will need the body arches rolling, and then some. These are some big rims with some chunky rubber, especially on the rear set. Tomica introduced this casting to their Foreign Tomica series in September 1977. During its production run, the BMW came out in a series of different colours, including the white with BMW Motorsport colours and Castrol tampos, black with the same BMW Motorsport stripes, blue with Gitanes advertising, and orange with Jägermeister decals. From looking at images, all but the orange car had red interior pieces. That had a black interior, but all shared the same blue headlight and grille piece. BMW's 1976 3.5 CSLs weren't the first E9 generation cars to be powered by a larger capacity version of the M30 straight-six engine. It had also been fitted to the CSL entered into the IMSA GT Championship in 1975. Prior to this, the 3-litre CSL already had a couple of years motorsport success under its belt. There were strict homologation rules stipulating entry requirements for many racing series of the 1970s. BMW built the 3-litre CSL road car in 1972 in order to go racing in the European Touring Car Championship. I talk more about the road car in my recent video about the Matchbox model that I consider to be one of the worst ever made by the brand, that claims to replicate a real car. A controversial video, that one. The European Touring Car Championship was run to Group 2 regulations for the larger capacity cars. BMW had hoped to enter the CSL in the 1972 championship, but they failed homologation due to too few road cars being built. They instead ran the heavier 2800 CS E9. However, BMW would return in 1973 with a CSL with a factory works team. They made a statement at the opening round in Monza. Drivers Niki Lauda and Brian Muir took the checkered flag ahead of a swathe of Ford Capri RS 2600s. CSLs took victory at the Nürburgring, Spa, Zandvoort, Paul Ricard and Silverstone in a clean sweep of the final 5 races of the year, as BMW swept to the manufacturer's title. Toyner Hazemans took the driver's title and alongside Dieter Quester won their class at that year's 24 Hours of Le Mans, claiming 11th position overall. CSLs continued the oil crisis afflicted 1974 ETCC in the same vein that they finished 1973 by taking 3 out of 3 wins. However, they lost out to Ford, with the lower division Escort RS 1600 conquering the entirety of the shortened calendar. Another CSL also took class victory at the 1974 24 Hours of Le Mans. BMW returned to the top of the ETCC in 1975 with a 100% success rate. But this was to be the year of the 3.5 CSL's debut in the IMSA GT Championship. Its first outing was the 24 Hours of Daytona, where it retired with engine issues. Then, in the next event, the 12 Hours of Sebring, drivers Hans-Joachim Stuck, Brian Redman and Alan Moffat drove the CSL to victory. Wins also followed for CSLs in the second 100-mile Laguna Seca race, 6 hours at Riverside, 250 miles of Daytona and the 1 hour of Talladega. CSLs also earned a smattering of podiums across the 1975 IMSA GT Championship campaign. The CSL entries at Le Mans that year both DNF'd. The production E9 BMW, which served as the basis for the CSL, exited production in 1975. Its touring replacement would be the new E21 first generation 3 Series, while the E9 was directly replaced by the E24 6 Series in early 1976. In the 1976 ETCC, entries were formed of the CSL's touring predecessor, the 2002, the CSL's successor, the 320, and the CSL itself. Despite leaving production, CSLs won all but one of the 9 races in 1976 after their main competitors Ford pulled out as a result of the oil crisis implications. Again, despite leaving production, the CSL was chosen as BMW's entry into the 1976 World Championship for sports cars. It fit into the Group 5 special production car regulations. These regs stipulated homologated production cars could be modified, but the widths of the car were restricted, except for the wide mudguard extensions. Otherwise, only the bonnet, roof, doors and rail panel were left unmodified. The 3.5 litre CSL had an extended and more raked rear wing than its predecessors, whose wings were more akin to the short, upright and more triangular design of the road car's bolt-on kit. It was for this reason I specifically chose to base this replica on a 1976 car, as Tomica included the raked rear wing in their casting design. At its first World Championship event at Mugello, the best placed CSL finished 6th in class and 8th overall. All cars ahead of it were Porsches. Drivers Harold Gross, Sam Posey and Baron Hughes de Vierlant earned a 2nd place podium finish at the next race, the 6 Hours of Vallelunga. Again, a Porsche beat them, the 935 of Jackie Ickx and Jochen Mass. If you're interested, I customised a Corgi 935 from 1977 in its iconic Martini livery last year. I'll drop a link for that here. At the 6 Hours of Silverstone, British drivers John Fitzpatrick and Tom Walkinshaw took victory in the Hermitite 3.5 CSL, winning by just 20 metres ahead of the Kramer 935 of Bob Wallach and Hans Heyer. In the final event prior to the non-championship race at Le Mans, the Schnitzer BMW of Albrecht Krebs and Dieter Quester won at the Nürburgring 1000 km event. This time they held a 4-minute lead over the 935 of Toyne Hazemans and Tim Schenken. Le Mans also introduced the new grouping regulations for 1976. 2-seat sports cars would make up the top tier Group 6, such as the number 18 Porsche 936, which I resto modded in another Tomica build earlier this year. In Group 5, Porsche were the favourites with their 935. BMW had released the 3.5 CSL to customer teams for Le Mans, with Schnitzer entering the number 43 car led by Dieter Quester, Hermitite with Fitzpatrick and Walkinshaw, and a privateer entry for Peter Brock among others. The BMW Works team also entered an adapted CSL with the 3.2 litre turbocharged engine pushing out 750 horsepower. This car was painted by American artist Frank Stella, the second BMW art car after the 1975 3-litre CSL designed by Alexander Calder. The car I am replicating though is the number 42 Alpina-Faltz 3.5 CSL entry driven by Harold Gross, Sam Posey and Baron Hughes de Vierlant. In practice, the art car was the quickest BMW with Brian Redman at the wheel, achieving 8th position overall, but they blew the engine in the process. The number 42 car qualified 18th, but its ultra-thin doors flexed at speed, allowing the exhaust fumes to enter the cabin, making the drivers quite nauseous. At the start of the race, Redman in the number 41 Works car wound up the turbos and shot up to 3rd place, before an expected oil leak forced him to pit in a cloud of smoke. In the 3rd hour, 3 of the BMWs had problems. Redman's engine gave out, as did that of the Hermitite car, while Posey in the number 42 car had to pit to change the windscreen. The Hermitite car retired with just 17 laps completed, before the art car followed suit in the 5th hour with 23 tours under its belt. With night drawing in, there was a fatal accident on the Mulsanne Straight. Andre Allaire lost control of his Datsun 260Z after touching the grass towards the end of the high-speed run. His car spun several times, crashing into the barrier and caught fire. Marshals managed to extract Allaire, but he sadly died en route to hospital from severe chest injuries. The two remaining factory-supported BMWs were running 8th and 10th at midnight. But the Schnitzer car of Questa, Albex Krebs and Alain Peltier was forced to retire early in the morning with a broken camshaft. The Alpina-Faltz car remained in 8th position at the 4 AM halfway point. There was some late drama in the final hour of the race, with fire engulfing Hans Heyer's 935 and the engine cover flying off of the front-running Mirage. However, the sole work-supported number 42 BMW would come home in 10th position overall, with 299 laps completed. This was only enough for 4th in class, behind Rolf Stommelen and Manfred Schurte's 935, a Privateer 911 RSR, and the Egon Everts 934 finishing 3 laps ahead. The only other CSL to finish the race was the number 95 Privateer entry from Le Maison du Weekend. They finished 24th overall and claimed Group 2 TS Special Touring Class victory in the process. BMW returned to winning ways in the World Championship at the Österreichring 6 Hours, with CSLs claiming a 1-2. However, Porsche would dominate the Watkins Glen and Dijon events, on their way to taking the 1976 manufacturer's title by 10 points over BMW. Over the Atlantic, BMW proved to be a little less successful in IMSA. But Peter Gregg and Brian Redman would win the 1976 24 Hours of Daytona in the number 59 3.5 CSL. Only one further win would follow that year at Talladega, alongside several podium finishes. After 1976, BMW no longer supported CSL entries. Only privately run teams entered the cars into IMSA GT Championship events between 1977 and 1979, with the final recorded entry the 1981 24 Hours of Daytona. Where possible, I usually try to feature some relevant footage of the real vehicle I'm recreating in diecast form in the video outro. That outro lasts around 20 seconds. I scoured the web for clips from the 1976 24 Hours of Le Mans to showcase the real number 42 Alpina-Faltz 3.5 CSL. In the end, all I could muster was about 14 or so seconds of short clips. The rest is of the same car wearing the number 23. This is where the car has a spin at the 6 Hours of Dijon, held later in the year after the 1976 Le Mans event. In case you're interested, that car is chassis number 2275988. Its best results was in the 6 Hours of Vallelunga that year, achieving second place with the same driver lineup that appeared at Le Mans. Make sure that you stick around until the very end of the video to watch that short montage, as it took me quite a long time to accumulate that small batch of footage. This was how my Tomica BMW 3.5 CSL was looking when I started work on it. It is a 1976 replica with that large, low-slung rear wing, so I wanted a set of period-correct decals to accurately portray the real racer. I turned to Le Mans decals for a set copying those seen on the only finishing factory-supported BMW from the 1976 24 Hours. They designed the decals to 1:64 scale, but the model is 1:60, so I had to be a little bit creative with them in places. The factory Tomica wheels were tiny, but the Creative 164 set were huge by comparison, meaning a bit of body manipulation was required for the rear pair. Aside from that, it just needed a general tidy up by means of a polish for the window piece and a repaint for the body, grille and interior. And this is how it turned out. In real time, the decal application excluding the right hand side of the model took me 40 minutes, probably around 50 overall then. But it was time well spent. I'm so pleased with the result. The BMW Motorsport colours of the livery pop even better on the black instead of white. I cannot express in words quite how good these Le Mans decals are. They produce all kinds of sports and rally cars, even the most obscure racers, in exceptional detail. I can't recommend them enough. Also excellent are the wheels by Creative One64. This set perfectly matched the BBS seen on the real car, even if it did mean a fair bit of grinding and filing. So what do you think of this custom? Tell me in the comments and leave a like if I did a good job. But all that leaves me to say is thanks for watching, and I'll see you again for the next one. Bye for now.